All right, let's see. Can you see that? Take 3. What is going on here? I keep trying to do this live feed and my internet is being whack and it's not letting me do it. So, one more time. Here's the pre-roll here. It's Sunday night. My name is CJ Reynolds. I have a YouTube channel called Real Rap with Reynolds. And the idea here is that I'm trying to provide some glimmer of like hope or sanity for folks that are, Tracy said this seems better. For folks that are like gearing up for the week, right? You're a teacher, you're a parent, you're a student, and you're trying to get ready for the week. And we're trying to like help you out with that. So while I'm waiting for people to transfer over, if you already heard me say this spiel already, I'm gonna say it again. I am coming back tomorrow from a day, or I was gone for a week in Belize. I took students to Belize and we did everything from scuba diving, snorkeling, zip lining, climbed Mayan temples, saw crocodiles, and I told the kids I saw a mermaid, but that wasn't true. It's me. Can I turn it sideways? Will it work? Will it trade? Orientation is locked. Rotate device back. It can't. So it's gonna look like that.
I did.
Did it do it?
No. Hold on.
It's telling me that I can't.
Okay, you can't.
All right. So we're just gonna keep. We're a crack operation here.
No, you just never know what you get with live.
It's just it's live. It's what happens. So we went on this trip. We got back last Sunday night, which is why we didn't have one of these last Sunday night, because I didn't get in till 11 o'clock my time. And then I've been off with my kids all week. And so it's so MZ Book said that this is better also.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting ready to jump back into school tomorrow. And to be honest, like I'm getting a little nervous also just because I haven't been there. And a lot happened like when I was gone. And so I'm interested in like what that's going to look like when I'm walking back in the door tomorrow. Plus I still have to firm up like some lesson plan stuff this week.
Sorry.
It's all right. That was a book bag. At least it wasn't a child coming down the steps. Sorry. This is an eventful night. I mean, it's like we're killing it over here. So as I'm talking, if you want to go ahead and put questions in the comment section, or if you want to leave like answer someone's question, that's cool too. Oh, that was you. So, and then I can't see them on my phone, but my wife will just read them to me from the side, or you'll hold it up to me.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay. So I'm just prepping everyone because we're doing a good job so far tonight. So this week we are starting Lord of the Flies. I'm going to do it with the 9th grade and the 10th grade this week, and I'm excited for that because it's one of my favorite books of the year. There's a lot of I could teach Lord of the Flies for like 2 months because it's just there's so much great stuff that you could pack into that book. That would be really, really fun, from the way that we study imagery when we're doing it, the way that we study things like symbolism and character development, and just a lot of the conversation that it brings up. Like, what do you do when no one's looking? What would happen if you were on an island alone? Who are we deep inside? Are you a good individual? Are you a bad individual? Did you start out like that? Did you not start out like that? It gives me the opportunity to talk to my guys about things like being a man, and what does that mean, right? So like, what were you taught about being a man when you were growing up, and what does how do you feel about that? Like, let's break that down a little bit and have that conversation. So teaching Lord of the Flies offers me all these really amazing opportunities, but this time we're reading it as a play, just because it's easier to read in class. And then I also have the novel version for the boys. So if they have anything to do at home, they can read the novel. But while we're in class, it just reads better with kids that struggle to read or that get bored very easily, to be able to like break that down and read it as a play instead of just as a book in class. This is my first question. So second question, because we had 2 live feeds ago, 10 minutes ago. Kirsten H is asking, I'm currently a student, but I've decided to go into teaching. I love your videos. They're super informative and inspiring. I would love to make my own teacher YouTube channel. Any tips or advice? So I would say this. That's an interesting idea. And here's why I think that that's cool. One, I would, Gary Vee is always saying like document over create. And the reason I think that I like the creative part of it, so I can't strictly do that. I like the editing portion and I like getting cool shots. I really wish I had film of from when I started teaching. Like it would be really fun to look back. My hair was all brown back then. And to hear my ideas of what it was like to teach or the things that I struggled with. I think it would be kind of the equivalent of like doing a weigh-in before you wanted to lose weight or before you started working out hard to take like when they tell you to like take a picture of yourself with no shirt on so you can see the difference, you can see the growth. And I wish I had that. I have like 2 pictures of myself from when I started teaching in the classroom, and that would have been fantastic. So I would just tell your story, and you don't even have to feel like you're, imparting any knowledge on people. You really simply are like telling what it's like to be a first-year teacher, and even now, like getting ready to go into teaching, to follow that story is really interesting. Someone. What's Fernanda's channel? One Happy Classroom. So my friend That One Happy Classroom is a channel on YouTube from my friend Fernanda, and that's what she's doing. This is her first year teaching, and she went from being like a makeup channel to being a teaching channel, and I like that idea of like documenting that. So that's what I would do if I had a YouTube channel in my first year of teaching. This is Kimberly Walbach says, what's the best way to work with and communicate with a principal and faculty? Whoo! Kimberly, you're trying to I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But that's a tricky situation. I would say one is being completely honest. I don't play games of like people try and be like political or try and figure out if they want, like how much they want people to know. Like, especially, how do I want to answer this? Because a lot of things are kind of going through my head when I'm thinking about that. But one, I would say be honest and be yourself. Don't pretend to be anyone else. Don't pretend to play anyone's game, even if you feel like that's going to mean your job. Because why would you want to work at somewhere where you couldn't like be authentic to who you are? I think when I have conversations with my principal or with what we refer to as the CEO of the school, who's the guy who like runs my school in Philadelphia, I always put the kids first. Like every decision I make, every question I have, everything I want to do, it very rarely has anything to do with me. It's always about the students. And I think it's easier for folks to listen to you if you make the case about the students. So if you want to take a trip or you want to go or you need new resources for your classroom or supplies, make it a student-centered. And then people, I just feel like in life are more caring, giving, gentle when you make it about the students. And I would, especially with faculty, I don't know that this happens with administration so much, but maybe it does. I'm thinking about this idea my friends and I refer to as closing the loop, which means if I have a friend, let's say I have, let me think of someone at school. Let's say Ed at school, I hear is talking trash on me, right? So my friend Dan comes to me and says, hey man, did you hear Ed is saying this thing about you? I'm immediately going to go to Ed. I don't have to rat Dan out for telling me that, but I'm immediately going to close that loop because I don't want it to become toxic. That's when things become toxic, is when people are like talking on the low. They need to know that I'm going to come right at you. And from a place of not always like I'm ready to like punch you in the face with my anger or whatever, but from a place of, hey, did I do something to upset you? Like I see that you're, I heard this, and I just want to make sure that we're cool because I just want us to be successful and to be here for the kids. And if you come at it from that perspective, this is my take on it. My wife would do something very different. We always laugh that my wife has zero finesse, and that really comes in handy sometimes. But I'm all about trying to like navigate those waters in the best way that I can so that it stays positive. And so sometimes I have to go in first, and then I have to warn people that I'm about to send my wife in here if you don't get it together. Right, buddy? All right. So the other thing I would say is closing the loop can look like if someone comes to me and complains about someone else or about something else, if it's just getting it off their chest, if it's just them looking for someone to listen to, someone to kind of air it out with, that's different. But if you're just coming to me to just talk trash all the time, I'll let folks know, like, I'm not the guy for that. Like, there's tons of people that would be willing to do that, but I can't do that with you, because then what you're doing is you're putting that on me. And now I have that information. And so I'll tell people, if it gets too much, I'll tell them, like, if I can't listen to this, but if you keep telling me, I'm gonna have to go to that person, because you keep complaining about the same thing, complaining about the same person. And
I don't think that's true.
No?
You tell those people that listen, that are complaining to you, you end up telling them, I think what you need to do is go talk to this person. You put it on them first. You don't just go rat that person
Well, no,
out.
I wouldn't rat them out. I would tell them, though, like, you need to do that sometimes,
Yeah,
or
but
like, I'm gonna like help you out
Yeah.
with that. I know, but you just jumped in.
Sorry.
And people don't even see. It looks like I'm talking to myself all the time. Not so secret wife. What do you got for me? Sorry, my wife.
Well, I only have
she's-
one.
It's okay.
I only have one
That's all right.
thing.
Kirsten H is saying, how do you respond when your students or district ask about your YouTube channel? That's real interesting too. So last year I didn't, because I had 40 subscribers this time last year. Now I have, like, I don't know, we broke 10,000 recently. So it wasn't an issue last year, but now that my channel has grown, it has become an issue. I have to make sure that I have permission slips for all the students that are on my YouTube channel. I am careful not to, like, so I have limitations at school. I'm not allowed to, like, record during the school day. It has to be before school or after school. And so that is tricky, and it's particularly tricky because I want to just record a lesson, and I'm trying to figure out still, like, how I can do that, because I think I have some room at school to do that if I just have a conversation with like the people that are in charge. But I've not gotten any negative feedback from any kids or any parents, partially because I think I just try and, like, put my students in a positive light. I'm not afraid to talk about real stuff or tricky stuff, but I never drop names or places. I rarely say where I actually teach, which is probably not very hard to figure out. But the whole idea here is for me to be positive, right? There are a number of channels out there where, like, folks aren't afraid to talk about, like, the negative aspects of their school or people that they don't like, and drop names or drop, at least their titles. And that gets hairy, because that can come back to bite you. So I think when you're making it about the kids, when you're making it something I'm trying to do positive for the world, for other teachers, like, it's hard to come at that. And I just happen to have a lot of freedom at my school and really understanding administration that kind of, like, go along with what I'm trying to do here and realize what I'm trying to do here.
And your students all love it.
Oh, and my students love it. I have parents that watch. I have parents that maybe are watching now. I have students that are probably watching now. I have kids that that watch in the morning. I've one of the cool things about this is I have parents that watch my YouTube channel that will like watching it because they have some idea of what's going on in school, because their teenager is not coming home anymore and telling them what's happening during the day. And so when they see it on my channel, they're like, oh, that's what that trip looked like, or that's what that lesson was, or that's what you were making that project for, or why you had to bring in a poster board, or whatever it was. They are getting like this little glimpse, and it makes me really think of, as a parent, like, I would love to have a glimpse inside my child's classroom and see, like, what they're doing and what that looked like. Because when they come home, they just tell you, like, you say, what'd you do today? Nothing. And then you find out, like, something awesome happened, except for when that canine dog came
about
in.
what Fernanda's channel was again.
Fernanda's channel is That One Happy Classroom. Can we put that in the comments?
Yeah.
Are we able to put a comment
And
in there?
someone said,
She's wonderful. She teaches in Arizona. Tiffany Tran, I know that name, says, have you ever been disappointed, surprised by certain choices your students have made? Constantly. I think the hardest thing about being a teacher is wanting so bad for kids that don't always want for themselves, right? You see the potential in young people that they don't yet see in themselves, and it is very, very disappointing. And then on the flip side of that, I have a ton of kids that, like, I was real worried about that are like killing it right now. I gave a talk at St. Joe's University in Philadelphia a few weeks ago, and I was talking about this guy Nate that I used to teach, who had a very tumultuous high school career and like made a lot of bad choices. And I asked him if I could share his story too. So this isn't like anything he wouldn't want to be putting out there, but without going in specifics, he had a hard time, and like he was not really sure what his future was going to hold. And now I was texting him the other weekend, and he was telling me that he's in school, he's getting ready to finish his first year at college. He goes somewhere far away, he told me, where there's more stars than he's ever seen, where it's actually dark at night. Because in Philly, it's never really that dark, and you can't see the stars because of all the ambient light from I think that's what it's called, ambient light, from all the buildings around and stuff. And how he went somewhere where he didn't know anyone. He didn't want to know anybody at his school. And I just think that is the kind of stuff that like we're in this for, right? We're not in this because we want just all the happy endings. Like you have to be ready for the tough stuff too, and to help students like navigate through that, because kids are going to make bad decisions all the time. But then it's not just what bad decision did you make, but like, all right, let's learn from that, and how can I help you navigate through that tough moment so that you can see kind of what you're like, what did this say about the fact that you were made of? In my video I made yesterday, I used this quote from my friend Derek Brown, who's a poet, who said, "Losing is pregnant with chance." And I love that idea so much, because it just means that like your losses don't just define like the negative aspects about you. They can be so telling of like what you are capable of next. Like how are you going to come back from that, which is easier said than done. But you know, with young people, we can be that kind of guiding voice for them. Our Woodward future teacher. That's a great name.
It's Roderick.
Who's it? Oh, it's Roderick?
Oh, yeah. He keeps...
Oh, all right. There it is. All right. So, hey there, it's Roderick. All right. How are you? I am well, Roderick. Thank you very much. I just received my elementary teaching certification in February, and I would like to know your thoughts on getting through the first year. Hold on tight, Roderick, like it's a roller coaster, and ride it out. Here's what I would say about your first year, and I answered this question when I tried to do a live feed earlier, and it failed. One, make sure that you are checking out other teachers, right? You are going to be overwhelmed with work. You will never get all that work done, so just submit to it like it's an argument that you're never going to win. And then make time for other things. One of those things should be to check out other teachers. Ask the students or ask the teachers, who's the best? Who won teacher of the year? Who's everyone's favorite teacher, or the funniest teacher, or the most organized teacher? And then in like 10-minute increments, go in and just sit in the back of their class. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to have you in, and give them a heads up and say like, hey, on Friday, could I come in and watch your class? And then while you're eating your lunch, just chill in the back. It gives you such insight into like, if you're having trouble with a particular student and they teach them also, how you could better handle that student. It gives you an idea of like what it looks like to transition from one activity to another, and then just steal all those ideas. Too many people try and make teaching about recreating the wheel when it's really just about stealing. That's why we have Pinterest, people. Like, you know, it's all about sharing ideas, taking things from other people, and then figuring out how you can make that your own. And then I think the other thing is you have to make sure that you take time for yourself, whether that's going out for a drink with your friends on Friday night, or watching Survivor with whoever your crew is on a certain night of the week, or going to the gym, or doing yoga, or whatever that, I don't know, maybe you're on a dodgeball team, but making those things non-negotiables. You have that time per week to play music with your punk band, even though you're 41. Which is still an okay thing to do. So just be mindful of that. Like, taking time for yourself is going to buy you, you'll keep more of your hair, and it won't turn this gray this fast. That's what I'm saying. Woodland Creature said, that's great. I enjoyed your spoken poetry link on one of your recent YouTube videos. What other poets do you recommend? I would say, oh man, this is going to be a hard one this is a hard one to spell. Maybe my wife can put it in the comments, or I will leave a link to it below. There's a poet named Anis Mojgani, who is the greatest, right? He has some really great poems. But so my friend Derek has a publishing company called Write Bloody Poetry, and really anyone through them is really wonderful. Buddy Wakefield's another favorite of mine. Derek Brown's a favorite of mine. Not a part of that publishing company is Saul Williams, has a really great poem that he did on deaf poetry that used to be on HBO called Coded Language that is just fantastic. And so I don't like a lot of poetry. I don't like snapping at the end of poetry. I feel like it's pretentious all the time. I'm not down with berets. I could be convinced otherwise of that though. But I like poetry that's like in your face and is like really, really powerful. And so that's what I talk about in my class a lot. And I try and show a lot of poetry that is poetry for kids that don't like poetry. So that's one of them. Are you typing that in?
No, I can't. And do this. At
the same time. It's all right. I will. I'll ride this out with you, lady.
Link it below.
We'll link it below. Carla Ellman is saying, "Great to catch you live. I'm glad you made it too, Carla. Welcome. Watching from South Africa, dude. I was just talking about South Africa. I wanted. That's like
we have a big idea.
South Africa is one. I have this really great idea for teachers from all over the world that I'm going to get to in a moment because I should probably just drop that now and tell people a little bit about it. Do we not flesh out the idea? All right, so I'm going to flesh out the idea. Sorry if that built some kind of false hope or something. But two, within the next few years, Africa is like one of those places, South Africa in particular, that I would love to take my students to. But I think it would take several years for them to save the money because the trip's really expensive. But I would... is my family coming too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so my family's going also because we used to live, my wife and I lived for a small amount of time in Zambia. So anyway, that's one of my hopes and dreams is to go there. How much technology do you integrate into your teaching? Whew, that's a fun question because I would love to, but my school is pretty broke, and so we don't have a lot of technology. Most of my 10th graders have Chromebooks, but they're either broken or they forgot them or they didn't plug them in or they don't know where their plug is or, any other number of problems. The 9th grade team that I'm a part of shares computer carts, but you have to reserve those. And it's like this big old cart that they roll into your room. It has all the laptops in there, but if you can't get those, it's an issue. Not everyone has cell phones or kids have cell phones, but they have if you have like one of those in the US we have like these Cricket mobile phones, which is like you kind of go to the store and you pay.
It's like a prepaid phone. It's
like a prepaid phone. And so, or not everyone has cell phones because some kids' parents don't want them on a cell phone or their cell phone looks like, I don't know, they smashed it with a hammer and so they can't really see anything on it or use it. So it's really limited as to like what we can use. And I don't have any technology other than that in my room in terms of, I don't have a smart board. I don't have, I have a projector that sometimes works. So we're really kind of limited in that sense. So I don't use a ton. If anything, I use YouTube a lot. I use videos that I find to back up ideas that I'm trying to convey, or I do a lot with like those Pixar clips that show up like before all the Pixar movies to talk about like characterization. Like this is a really short film and like what is it symbolizing? What is we'll talk about like Shakespeare and like watch clips of things like that. Or when we read Night, the book by Elie Wiesel, we watched a lot of short clips from movies that took place in the same time span, from everything from Inglourious Bastards to Band of Brothers and stuff like that. So I don't have a lot of technology in my room that's at my disposal, so that's really why I don't use it. Otherwise, I would totally love to use more.
Statement.
What's that?
It's a
statement. Rich Warner is saying, I start student teaching in fall. I found your channel a few weeks ago, and you have motivated and inspired me so much. Thank you, Reynolds. Rich, I'm glad. That's what I'm here for. So I'm really glad to hear someone say that, because otherwise it's just me in my living room alone, except for my wife and that piece of plywood that I have to use to keep my dog from going up the steps and eating Lego figures. Rich, what are you hoping to teach? Where's your student teaching? And then like, what's your dream teaching situation? If you could leave that in the comments, I'm just interested. Summer Hayward, That's a really great. I love that name, Summer. How was your trip? I'm taking 40 students from DC, from Texas to DC. That's a lot of kids. Next summer, it's kind of daunting task. Any tips? Yes. Here are my tips. One, did you say drink some Red Bull or red wine?
Red Bull.
Or both.
Wait, to keep up with 40 kids?
I think you are setting the tone for the trip. If you're having fun, the students are going to have fun. I was way weirder on the trip than any of my students. My guys try and like post up and be tough the whole time, and I'm like singing songs on the beach and like doing cartwheels in the airport, which that was probably a little bit much. But I think you set the tone, build the expectation, build the excitement going into it that like, here's what I'm really excited about. This is what I'm excited to see you guys experiencing or you kids experiencing. Be mindful of the fact that like some of your students may have never traveled before. Find out who those kids are, and then really breaking down like, this is what you need to pack. This is what you absolutely don't need to pack. This is what you're going to experience. Like walk them through the process. Like if you're taking a bus, what that's going to be like. If you're taking an airplane, what that could look like. Because I had students that had never been on a plane before, and they were just, everything was new and amazing to them. I had other kids that had been on planes before, and two of our planes kind of sucked. And so they, that was my co-teacher just texting me about next week. He's clearly not watching the show right now. I'm a little disappointed, Ed. So they, come on. He's one of those guys that texts you very short texts, but like 9 of them in a row. So I would just prep the kids for like all those little steps. And then the other thing that came in really handy this time was we had all the parents and students sign up for Remind 101, so that if we took a picture of everyone, because the boys kept not taking pictures of themselves and sending them home, it was like, we're at a butterfly farm. Here's a really great picture, and then we're going to send that to all the parents. Here we are at a waterfall, or scuba diving, or snorkeling, or walking on the beach at night at sunset. And you can keep sending those home, and then parents can directly text you back if they want to ask about like someone's facial expression, or did they like the fish, or whatever it was. It made it really fun and more interactive to do it that way. Our trip was awesome, by the way. I have a ton of footage that I just kind of like got the first part of the editing done, but I have to go through that all again and then figure out how I want to present that. But that video is in the works, and I'm super excited to show it to everyone because we had such a great time on the trip. What do you got? Indie Kitty. I love seeing things that pop up again and again. Do you like Howl by Ginsberg? I do, but that's a tricky poem to talk about because Allen Ginsberg talks about a lot of weird stuff in there. And I don't mean weird in the overall sense. I think weird in depending on what grade level you're teaching and the maturity level of your students, and kind of like where you teach in the world, and like whether that's particularly conservative or liberal, like that can bring up a lot of tricky stuff. But I think at least portions of that are worth doing. And then like just kind of knowing your audience and being sure, like I show stuff with curses all the time, but it's one of the things we talk about in class is like, are people cursing in music and in poetry and books just for the sake of cursing? Like you're a 4th grader and you just learned the F word and you just say FD friendly and have kind of like everyone be open to listening to his music. But how it was really difficult because sometimes you just wanted to like, you know, the F word is like the perfect thing to drop for emphasis on a point. And if you've ever read anything with a curse, even a mild curse where someone says damn in a book, the kids will be kind of reading and go along like this, and then they're like damn, and they really emphasize it because it's kind of fun to say. And I think that's why the author had it in there, to like bring that kind of emphasis. So I would just be mindful of who you're reading that with if you're going to do it. I don't know how to say that.
Just
Rocket's cool if he. I'm going to stick with that one. What do you think about the teacher strikes and walkouts? I'm trying to think of what I think about that. I think one of my takes on that, when we had even the walkout with students several weeks ago, when it was the in response to the Parkland shootings, right? I think teaching students how to do that in a responsible way is really impactful for students. So if you were going to do a walkout, I would make sure to communicate with my students and their families, like, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. And then I would make sure that I conducted myself in a manner that showed my students how you can stand up for what you believe in and what you think is right, and still do that in a respectful manner, in with love and without being, and even if you're angry, like having that be like sort of a righteous anger and not just like losing your shit all over the place, like being smart about that. Sorry if your kids are watching this. I think there's a lot to learn in that. I had a student who texted me last week, and I have a viewer whose name I won't share because I don't know if she wants me to. So I have a viewer that texted me while I was in Belize that I hear what happened at Howard University. Of course, I got nervous right away because there's so much madness with guns going on lately in schools. And so I texted her back, and she said that the students had taken over the administration building and that she was there and that they were doing this sit-in. And so I immediately thought of one student that I had that was going to Howard University. I texted my man. I said, hey, what's going on? He said, I'm sitting in the administration building right now, and we've taken it over. And then I've been talking to him while that sit-in was going on, and really just, what I was hoping for him was that, I think that you get that crowd mentality sometimes, that mob mentality where everyone's in there, everyone starts getting a little bit nuts. Next thing you know, something breaks, something else breaks. There's madness, there's tear gas, there's cops. And so if you're going to do that, good for you, right? Like if you want to stand up for something, 100% do it, but be mindful of the manner in which you're doing it, because sometimes folks are just looking for an excuse to down you or to spin it the wrong way. And maybe they're going to do that anyway, and to hell with them. But I think that it's a really great opportunity for teachers to stand their ground. I mean, and for them to show their students how it's done. Audria, I think I'm saying that right. Audria Davis. Have you ever thought? I'm grunting because I just really suck at saying people's names. I apologize. Have you ever thought about going into administration? What is keeping you in the classroom, and how do you know when it's time to leave the classroom? All right, so those two first ones are pretty quick, and the last one, not so much. So, no, I have no interest in becoming an administrator, and the reason for that is, I feel like, I like the students too much. I like that part of the grind too much, where administrators that I witness. And so we have like our assistant principal at our school has done a really, really great job this year. He's brand new to our school, and he came in never, as far as I know, never teaching at a school sort of like ours, but he's put in a lot of time and effort. But when I see him, he is constantly kind of like being called to put out fires. And I don't get the sense that there's enough time for the good stuff that happens with students too, right? You're just dealing with like kids that got kicked out, or a fight that happened, or an irate parent. And although that stuff's really important, I think that just takes a very special type of personality to handle that. And I like dealing with the day-to-day of students. And I think being in the classroom gives me more time in this type of school that I'm in to do that. So where I'm not, having like, I feel like there's more of like a more face-to-face time with students for both things. So the thing that keeps me in the classroom is the students, always. Whenever I get frustrated, whenever I wonder why the hell I even got into this job, it's always the kids that make me think, that remind me this is why I'm here. Because you just, I just think students need someone that's going to show up every single day consistently, year after year. And that when you do that, for kids that don't have any consistency, and I'm not the only one, right? I'm not trying to say that like this is, freedom writers or something like that, where like I'm the dude that goes in every day and I'm saving the children. I'm a part of a team that gets to work together and willingly works together to come up with plans. Like You've seen my friends Cho and Yonkers on the channel before, and we work as a unit along with other teachers to make sure that kids are having the best experience that they can. And I really like that. That is what keeps me going. Are the students that I'm connected with and the people that I get to work with at my job. When it's time to leave the classroom, I think like not every school is the right fit for everyone. Just because you don't fit in that school or with those students or with those teachers or with that administration or in that subject area or grade level, like sometimes making the shift is better. We've all seen those teachers that should have retired a long time ago because they've been in the game for 30 years and they're burnout and they're tired. And it's just such a shame. And I don't say this to slight them at all, but if their career had kind of like pivoted a little bit, or if they had taken on a new position, sometimes that can breathe some new life into you, and then you're excited about doing what you're doing again, and you're not so burnt out about it. So I just think that's, I just think you inherently know. So if you're asking that question, like maybe and if you want to talk about that some more, you could even email me at realrapidthereynolds@gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to, like, if you want to share some details, we can talk that out a little bit. Tracy Pinter, what's up, Tracy? Says, Reynolds, do you plan by the week or from day to day? Are you mandated to do one or the other? Here's one of the awesome things about my school. I'm not mandated to do anything. I don't even have to turn in lesson plans, which is like blows people's minds, but it's awesome. I plan out, so every book that I read takes about 5 weeks. I look at a schedule. I plan out when I want to start, when I want to finish. I write in all those other days that are like when we have a speaker coming in, when we'll be on a trip, when there's some school mandated thing going on, when we have a day off, when we have conferences, so that I don't schedule over those. And then I can figure out, like, can I finish this book logistically in 5 weeks? Then I figure out what I want to read a day. So typically if it's like 10 pages a day, and then when I used to do homework, I figured out like how much homework they were going to have each night, like how long would it actually take me to read a book. And then what activities that I want to implement, making sure that I did at least one activity a week, and then plugging that in. So it's first I do my whole quick unit plan, which doesn't take very long to do that. And then I typically do it by week so that I know what I want to start that week and what I want to finish. And then really after this long of doing it, and I don't recommend this for everyone, but I figure out that day what I'm going to do. So like either the night before or that day. And the reason I do that is because maybe we went over symbolism the day before, and I feel like nobody had any idea of what we were talking about. Maybe we went over imagery and my example or my PowerPoint or my video didn't really hit home, and like no one had any clue what we were talking about. And so I want to be able to stop, note that, go back, check in with the kids, make sure everyone's on board before we push on. The worst thing you want to do in a book is have like nobody have any idea what you're talking about. So making sure that you're going over those comprehension questions, making sure that you're checking in with students, making sure that you're not going too fast. And so that's why like locked in weekly lesson plans don't really work for me, because I still know what I want to do, but it's like I don't want to move too fast and leave anyone behind.
She said hers are due by Sunday night at 9 p.m.
Oh, yours are due Sunday night, 9 p.m. I know a lot of teachers that deal with that madness. I just think, here's what I would say about that. This is why that bothers me, and not that this helps anyone out because I'm just complaining, but teachers are so often, right, like not treated like professionals, where they are treated as like kids, or like, you have turned in your homework. Like, bro, I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to kill it. And what I'm doing is wasting my time doing lesson plans when I should actually like be creating something that I could actually use in class. I could build something, make something, design something that's actually going to be fun. But instead I have to tell you this and stuff that no one's ever going to look at. And to be honest, I don't even work there anymore, so I can tell about this. When I worked in Camden, I used to work in Camden, New Jersey. I'm going to tell this story. I did lesson plans my first year of teaching every week. No one ever looked at them. I used those same lesson plans for the next 5 years while I was teaching there. I changed the dates, and that was it. I handed them the same thing. Sometimes it wasn't even the same book that I was doing. But you know what? No one looked at them, and I just handed those in.
School,
so don't go doing that, and then say Reynolds. Actually, I don't give a shit. Like, do whatever you want. But the idea here is that then I would actually work on my real lesson plans. That I like sketching things out, coming up with ideas, being creative, and that, nothing kills creativity like a form. Like, how are you going to impact students? What, I think that's important, and I think it's important for first year teachers especially. But I think Kate's saying maybe block someone. But I hear what you're saying. And that stuff sucks.
All right, read that first.
A Cage is saying, have you ever taught a student with disability like blindness or something to that extent? How can you help those students to be a part of a classroom and not feel excluded? So that's a really, what's that?
Recommend Dustin.
Oh, yeah. So he doesn't have that disability.
No, but he has a disability. He's in a wheelchair.
Okay, so one, I would say, if you've not before, you should check out my friend. He has a YouTube channel called Dust Tales, kind of like the old show Duck Tales, which is what he was taking it from. His name's Dustin. He is, I think is he quadriplegic? Paraplegic?
No, he's just I don't know.
He's in a wheelchair, and he doesn't have, I think he's paralyzed from the waist down, and he's a teacher. So not exactly the same thing, but it's a really great insight into like, someone with that sort of handicap, and then like still going into the classroom and still doing like living life and like teaching kids, and I just think he's a really wonderful human being. I think also I've not had anyone that was completely deaf or blind, but I've definitely had kids that were hard of hearing. I have had students have had hearing aids. I've had students that were almost blind that had to read with like papers that were maybe an inch in front of their face and that you had to blow up the font. And then kids that have like these, what do they refer to them as? Like they're like the silent sufferers, like kids that have dyslexia and learning disabilities and stuff like that. It all just breaks down to meeting kids where they are and helping them out as much as you can, and just teaching them like they're actual people. And the best way to do that is to just talk to them about regular stuff. Not talking to them about about their disability, although I think that is endlessly interesting. And sometimes people are afraid to talk to kids. Like I've had students that have survived cancer before. And I enjoy asking them about that. I don't know that everyone else is asking them about that, but I'm interested to know, like, what was that like? And how did you get through it? And like, what does that mean for you now? What is your outlook on life now? But then still talking to them about like the new Avengers movie or Fortnite or what else they're interested in, and helping kids feel normal. I've never had to deal with any of that stuff on my own, but I do know after losing both of my parents, there are either people that in my life that were afraid to talk about it, that didn't want to talk about it, and people that just wanted to talk about it. And no, all three of those things suck, right? There has to be this kind of like happy medium where like you're not afraid to address it. If it comes up, you can address it, but then like just talk about normal stuff. Kids just want to be normal. No one wants to stick out no matter what they tell you, and helping kids to just, you're reminding them that, hey man, everyone's going through something. Some of those things are really visible, like you are blind or deaf or in a wheelchair, and some of those things are silent and on the inside, like depression or something like learning disabilities or dyslexia, but that we're all dealing with something, and I'm just here to help you ride that thing out the best that I can. Kimberly Wallback is saying, do you have a website that has your speaking schedule on it? I finally found a school that is a good fit for me, and that's awesome. First of all,
she also asked a lot earlier, if you could come speak to her school.
Oh, first of all, I'll go speak to anyone's school. Just hook it up, send me an email, and we'll work it out. Because I love speaking. It's so great. I love like being able to actually talk to people, speak to students, speak to staff, because it's a lot more, full than this conversation can be sometimes. Also, I don't have that readily available. So here's the gig, right? If you look up Real Rap with Reynolds, There's a website. I just don't have time to get to it yet, and that's one of my summer projects. There's a whole host of things that we're hoping to do, but it's a 2-person operation. It's me and my invisible wife. That's it. She was just giving me a hand right there. That was a stupid joke. So my son needs a lot of advocating at school. You know, I have as many restrictions as everyone else, but I'm hoping to get that up this summer because I realize I do let people know late that I'm speaking somewhere. So I'll try and be better about that. But Kimberly, if you send me something, I'll 100% come to your school. It's done. Now she's going to tell me she lives in like Thailand or something like that, and then I got to pay for my own ticket.
No, she's not.
So MZ Books is saying, do you have set texts or exams that you have to teach for? Here we have specific texts that have to be taught for exams. I don't. So we put a lot of emphasis on not teaching to the test in our school. So do I teach with the test in mind? Yes. But I never teach to the test. I get to pick also all of my own books every year. I'm allowed to read anything that I want. So in the past, I've read everything from, you know, things that are on, I try and teach things that are in the literary canon, meaning things that are going to be referenced through students' high school and college career, like Of Mice and Men, Macbeth, what else am I thinking of? Night, Lord of the Flies. These are books that like students from all over the world are reading in high school. But then I also have taught things like V for Vendetta, which is a graphic novel, Persepolis, which is a graphic novel, Speak, which is a YA book that's more recent. I really just want to build interest. And I think that if you have students that are really, really struggling to read, it's in your best interest to read things that are going to actually be interesting to students. And so sometimes that looks like reading a book like Of Mice and Men, but as a play, like we did this year, because it's more interesting to the students. So I get to pick anything I want, and it's really a blessing. But I think even if you are stuck, there are interesting ways to kind of like shake that up. Like maybe finding poetry that goes along with that, or music that goes along with that you can compare and contrast, or news articles, or videos, you know, that you find on YouTube that you can compare and contrast with that. I think there are ways to kind of shake that up, but yeah, like I said, I'm just really kind of blessed to be able to do whatever I want in that capacity. With a word from our sponsor.
We're almost at an hour.
Cool. So we'll finish up. We'll do a couple more. School for School is saying, have I ever thought of teaching a credential program? I think you would be amazing. I know you are mentoring a lot of teachers here, but I think that you'd be great in that role as well. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what that is. So could you leave a comment or something, like kind of breaking that down? The short of that is I love teaching teachers, and I'm really just waiting for the weather to break, and because it's like 40 degrees again today, and it's supposed to be spring. We were supposed to have snow yesterday in Philly, because I want to do a meetup, and I want to try and make those sort of regular, so that like once a month or whatever, or however often people would like to do it, we're meeting up and people can actually like show up and ask questions, and I can give answers in real time, and they can share a little bit more than they might be willing to share on the internet. Indie Kitty is saying, how do I teach gifted kids in my class? So gifted kids are tricky, right? Because, you know, sometimes you have like gifted kids that are really quiet and they don't let you know that they need extra work. Sometimes you have kids that are like manic and need a ton of extra attention. I treat them like everyone else, first of all. No one gets any more attention than anyone else if I can help it in my class. And that means kids that are a huge discipline issue and kids that are like flying high and like are amazing students. Because I think that discounts it for all the number 2 students, like those in-between students that fly under the radar. So I try to make it so that everyone gets the same amount of attention. But I'm not afraid to give kids extra work. Fair is not equal, I always tell my students. So some kids have more time on tests, some kids don't. Some kids get to read shorter amounts of the book, some kids don't. Because guess what? I'm here to push you, and if I think I'm not going to give everyone 10 push-ups for homework if, one kid over there is like, skinnier than a dead model and somebody else has, huge muscles. Like, it's not fair, that sort of idea. So I'm not afraid to give certain kids more or less work. So, maybe pulling that student aside or talking to a parent or talking to the other teachers that would probably be my answers. Speak to the other teachers in that grade level, see what they are doing, and then come up with a plan for that student or those students to, like, what is life in their class is going to look like, or what is life in your class is going to look like for that student in terms of extra work or different work or reading a different book or that sort of thing. I think yeah, I like that answer. I would make that a community decision. I would involve the parent, the student, but first the teachers to figure out what you all are planning to do for that student to make sure that they are not just bored or tired or whatever in your class, that you're challenging them and you're giving them the greatest possible, class every single day, even though they might be, moving a lot faster than the rest of your class.
Credential programs are like college classes for teachers.
Yeah, so credential classes, my wife's saying, are college classes for teachers. I don't know that I'm qualified for such a thing.
Which
to
is
be
why
honest.
I do YouTube.
That's why I do YouTube. I am like, this is Real Rap with Reynolds. I have no one in my, no men in my, so I was raised by my mom's side of the family because my father passed away when I was young. No one on that side of the family, none of the men ever graduated from high school. No one ever went to college. And so when I went to college, my family thought that was ridiculous. And so I started in community college because I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I just knew that I didn't want to do construction for the rest of my life, which is what most of my family did. They were all in the union, and so they all did construction or put roofs on places. And I knew that I'm not built for that. These arms are not, that's not construction arms right there, buddy. So I just did that. So my hands are too soft. So I have done that work for side jobs and stuff like that. But when I went to college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I didn't really have any examples in my life of anyone that had done this successfully. And none of my friends were really going to college either. So I went to college, I went to community college, and then I went to a state school at Rowan University here in New Jersey. And I graduated from there when I was 26, because I took I should have been a doctor by the time I graduated from college. And then I never really saw a need to go back for a master's. I didn't want to spend the extra time. I wanted to spend it with my students and all my classroom and doing things like that. Then I got married, then I had kids. And so I really don't see myself going back for a program like that. And typically you have to go for your master's so that you can teach in a college. So instead, I just started a YouTube channel. I can say anything I want, and there's no lesson plans involved, and it pays probably the same. So
it pays
although
nothing.
it'll be awesome.
pays
But I'll tell you
nothing.
what, it doesn't really pay anything. But I'll tell you what, the thing I'm glad you brought up that question, because that's one of the reasons I like speaking at colleges, right? The expertise that I have are through sheer doing every single day, right? So anything that I'm good at, anything that I'm not good at, I can share that with the class. And I don't know that college students get that enough, where they have an actual teacher come in and talking about their experience and what it's like today in a school like theirs to teach. And I really like that opportunity to be able to do that with students. Diane McKinley is asking, should we make this last one? We're almost at an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll see what
all right, so then this might be my last one, but White for Life's going to check the comments in a second. Diane McKinley is saying, I'm currently student teaching and I have a great rapport built with my regular English classes. Yay, that's fantastic. But I'm struggling building connections with my advanced group. Have you seen a similar issue? Oh yeah. So I guess it was last year's honors class. I called them so-called honors class. They were just not those dudes. They just didn't want to build connections. They didn't want to have conversations. They didn't want to talk about deep stuff. They wanted work. They wanted to complete work. They wanted to hand in work. And even the conversations we had about stuff were very rarely like personal. They had a hard time like connecting their life to a text. And I think sometimes, I think it's just the way it is. Like some groups you get one year and they're awesome. Some groups you get another year, they're really challenging. Some groups are boring. And so I think that that's just how it is. I wouldn't stop trying though. So I would maybe try to like ask them, like sometimes turn it to the students like, hey, this is the idea of the kind of class that I want to have. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to connect with you guys. Do you see a way that we can do that? Or is that something you're interested in? Or, you know, sometimes turning it around and giving the students a voice is the best thing you can do in general. Like, do you like learning about this? Do you not like learning about this? Do you like the way this class is going? What's something we could do to make the class more engaging or more fun or more interesting or more exciting? And having those conversations, I guarantee you, most of those students have never been asked those sorts of questions before. So giving them power, giving them a voice in the classroom is something that's like super awesome. And I think is really, really useful to students because they start learning about like, yeah, what do I think about this? How do I feel about this class? What would I want out of it? Patrick Nolan is saying, hi Reynolds, what would you say is the best way to control a class when you aren't exactly a strict person? You don't have to be a strict person. I think you have to be a consistent person. So I am super weird. I do a lot of silly stuff. I hand out mustaches. I draw on kids sometimes. I shoot them with water pistols. I have robot arms that I bought from IKEA this year that are awesome. I have bubbles in my classroom. We eat cereal. Like we do all this weird stuff. But my non-negotiables are non-negotiable. You do not talk when I'm talking because guess what? I'm important, man. And I will listen to you 100% when you're speaking also. But right now, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen to what I'm saying. I need you to be engaged in the work. You showed up to class. I'm assuming you want to be here. Otherwise, don't come to class. Don't drop out. That's a bad thing to tell kids. Like, go to another school. Go to another class where, like, the teacher doesn't care if that's what you're looking for. But I'm here to try and, like, help you be the greatest student that you can be on my best days. Sometimes I'm not so good at that. But, like, you know, you're trying to, like, build a class that looks a certain way and letting the kids know, like, look, I want this to be the best 50 minutes or hour and a half of your day. How can we do that? And so I think, one, being consistent and not letting those things slide. Two, letting kids know how excited you are about actually being there. My students know that I love them. I tell them all the time that I love them. They know that I love being in school. They know when I'm excited about a lesson, when I think a lesson's kind of a drag, or when like, this isn't going so well. What are we going to do about this? This kind of sucks. So being consistent and being yourself. If you're not a funny person, don't try and be funny because you think the kids are going to like it. If you're not overly strict or, you know, my friend Cho always looks like this all the time. If you're not that person, don't be that person all the time. Like, be who you are, but you can figure out a way. And then just try a whole bunch of stuff. The greatest thing about teaching, one of the greatest things about teaching is you get to reinvent yourself every year. Make notes. This absolutely didn't work. This was awesome. And then, you know, use those or lose those the next year. And that's how I would kind of go about dealing with a situation like that. We got
That's it. But tell Sarah, only schooling mom, she said she's late again.
Oh.
Hit that notification.
So I would say this in closing, before you don't log off yet. I see there's 55 of you on here. Please don't let me see that number die because I want you to hear this. So one, if you teach from somewhere else in the world, would you please mind, or wherever you're from, would you please not mind leaving a comment? I'm trying to get a sense of where people are coming from, right? You don't have to say your school or anything like that, but just what part of the world, even if it's in the United States, where you're teaching from. I have this really great project where I want you all to be a part of that. And so I'm trying to get that ready. Second, if you want to not miss this, if you hit that little bell under the screen there, it'll set your notifications. And every time I put up a video or I go live, you'll know about it. And so if you want to check it out while you're doing it, like that'll show up and it'll be a way for you to engage like quicker. But short of that, it's going to be every Sunday night, 5 p.m. Eastern time. We're doing this Thank you so much for watching. I really, really love this.
many great
Look at all this stuff popping up. That's what I'm talking about. Canada,
England.
East Texas, Michigan,
Belgium.
Glasgow, Ontario,
Belgium,
Belgium, Massachusetts,
Lebanon,
Lebanon. The internet is so awesome. Scotland.
Massachusetts.
I just said both of those.
Oh, someone said South Jersey. Oh,
South Jersey? Yeah, South Jersey. Middle of Georgia, student teaching in North Carolina, Trinidad, Canada. What part of Canada? Say? Because that's a pretty big place. And Canada is endlessly fascinating to me. I love Vancouver. Except everyone's way too attractive there and you feel like the ugliest person in the mob all of a sudden. Come to Georgia. I'll go anywhere you want. Just send me an email and let me know where to go and what the heck I'm going to talk about. So, till next week, everyone. I hope you have the greatest week ever this week. Seriously, if I could help you with anything, leave a comment, send an email, a DM, whatever. And that's it, y'all. Peace. Now I have to awkwardly figure out how to end this live feed because I don't know what I'm doing. Do I just hit that?
Yeah.
Hashtag winning.